here in person and those online for voting to accept the New Style Work of the Year report. And as Ben said yesterday, it reflects the incredible amount of effort that your officers and staff have put in to promote and protect your interests over the last 12 months. And to the AGM team for their excellent work, and Rock Warehouse for providing the technology for making conference possible, a big thank you. And I did mention this in the Work of the Year report, but special welcome to the newest member of the Napo family, Claire O'Hare, who's here as part of her induction training, and I hope you've had the chance to meet with her. You're hugely welcome, Claire. And thanks, of course, to our monitors, stewards, and our comrades on steering committee for their equally valuable work. Well, it's been another tumultuous year in the life of our union, as we sought to follow the mandates you set for us 12 months ago. Looking across the spectrum of our work, I want to express my personal appreciation to our members in CAFGAS for their vital work assisting families and especially children, despite the pressures of workloads and additional operational requirements that all too often are a distraction from the core tasks that they want to achieve. And I want to thank Jackie Chiotto, her first visit ever to a Napo conference. You were most welcome. She's had to leave us sadly, but I actually thought the presentation was first rate, and I'll be telling her that, and I hope she comes back again in the future, because we need to build a relationship going forward with senior management. And I know only too well the value of the work that CAFGAS members do, and I'll let you into a secret. The last 3 years, and it's not finished yet, have all too often been something of an emotional struggle for certain members of my own family. And whilst I'm limited in what I can say publicly, I am, and my family is deeply indebted to a former CAFGAS employee and Napo loyalist who on occasions has helped us cope with the emotional fallout from the nightmare scenario of a broken relationship where one of the parties is, as you heard this morning, one of those inveterate narcissists. So I relate to all the things that were discussed this morning, and I can only say it's had a dreadful impact, and I think the family are coming through it eventually. But it's brought my perspective, my appreciation into sharper focus of the work undertaken by our members in CAFGAS. Well, this week we received proposals from CAFGAS on pay for 2025-26 just this week, and only yesterday I met with the CAFGAS negotiating committee to get their views about the offer. And let me just say for the moment, this union will never recommend a below inflation pay offer. We'll obviously explore the possibility of a room for manoeuvre, and we need to do something more than what's on offer, but that ultimately would be the decision of members. But I welcome the new start to the handling of the relationship around personal casework, which was the subject of a motion yesterday, but I look to the Chief Executive to underpin those new arrangements. In Probation Northern Ireland, our members continue to be brilliantly served by our stalwart activists Fiona Vaughan, Jen White and NEC member Nuala Mullen and others. They've built a good example of partnership working with the employer there, and our National Chair, Ben Coburn, looks forward to his impending visit to meet with our members in Northern Ireland next month. So this summer, on June the 29th, we drew a line in the sand by launching an industrial action ballot, the first since 2013, but this time under the legacy anti-trade union legislation bequeathed to us by the dreadful Tory government. But it wasn't just a ballot that we launched, but a fight back. A fight back against excessive workloads and inadequate pay, and a fight back against our members being treated with disrespect by this government and the one that preceded it. A signal statement that at long last we were willing to deploy all of the strategies available to us to defend our members' interests. It was this union carrying out the mandate set by yourselves 12 months ago. We followed that mandate to the letter. And yes, ultimately the result was disappointing. But there's two ways to deal with a setback. One is to feel sorry for ourselves, point fingers and make excuses as to why it happened. And we've had that internal debate, happily without recrimination. We've had an adult discussion and a review of what went on, and we have learned a good deal from it. So the other response is to dust ourselves down, reflect on what we've learned, and get ready, if it becomes necessary, as looks increasingly likely, to go again. So unless we get a recommendable offer, no sign of that right now, let me send another message. We'll be back. Better, stronger, with even more conviction than our first attempt. And it's worth shouting out massive thanks to the tremendous work that you, our activists in probation, put in to try and secure the industrial mandate that we were seeking. Let me tell you something. When we had the probation negotiating committee meeting to reveal the result of that ballot, there were some people in tears, distraught at the outcome of that ballot, wondering how on earth people who are under pressure every single day in the way that you come here and report, that 50% of those we asked for review couldn't engage in the ballot. There are a range of reasons why that could be. I'm not going to go through them now, but we've learned a lot, as I said. But if we'd secured that mandate at that time, and it was timed to coincide with the launch of FTR 48, obviously, we'd have had a mandate for disruption that no government would have survived. And we would have got, in short order, a pay offer from that employer. Well, it wasn't to be, because your employer and this government adopted a wait-and-see strategy in response to our ballot, even though we gave them every chance to offer something that would allow us to ask a different question or even suspend that ballot, pending further negotiations. But they decided to give us the cold shoulder. So we had no option but to launch that ballot. Now, we made a compelling argument that probation staff, above all other public service workers, and make no apologies, no disrespect to our comrades in other sectors of public service, that you deserve to be treated as an exceptional case when you think what you have gone through and what you have delivered for the previous government and this one. Of course you're an exceptional case. And it's the worst kept secret that actually your employer thought we would get the threshold in the ballot. I know that for a fact. Can't say who told me that, but I know that. As evidenced by their attempts to scurry around behind the scenes to beg managers and HQ staff and other specialists to volunteer for front-facing duties if needed. So you had them scared, but we didn't get the result this time. And the Lord Chancellor's parting words to us at the meeting that Ben and I attended with her just before the ballot were to the effect that, notwithstanding the restrictions imposed by the civil service pay remit, she'll get back to us. So we had a period of 3, 4, 5 days waiting for the phone call. But it never came. That in itself I find quite disgusting, compounded, of course, by the fact that we submitted a pay claim in January this year, and here we are 10 months later with not a bean on the table to talk about. Is that the way they should treat you? No. Is that respectful of your position? Absolutely not. And whilst there are a lot of things that this government is wanting to do and trying to do, which broadly we're in favour of, around the sentencing review and likelihood, and that, we can't take that level of disrespect. So we make our plans for ballot number 2, as endorsed by the NEC at its meeting last month. But let me make it clear. The next phase of the campaign will be hard. I can't assume anything. It will be challenging, and it will be a test for us all to try and make inroads into that part of our membership who, for whatever reason, chose not to engage with the first ballot. So we're not here to point fingers, as I say. We're here to engage, to encourage, to give people confidence that they can make a difference. You do that every day in your professional lives. But it means you have to do it amongst our own membership on key industrial issues. But I know we'll count on you again to do your best next time out. But there's been positives out of the setback as well. 300 new members joining Napo over the summer. Unparalleled, I think, in recent history. Some Napo branches, previously at a low ebb when activists have retired or can no longer offer commitment through sheer exhaustion, now holding general meetings with substantial numbers of members in attendance, How uplifting is that? I came off the Merseyside meeting a few weeks ago, absolutely just full of it. It was like a throwback to the good old days. New representatives offering their services there and then to get on the branch committee. We've got training courses for our Napo reps in the field of health and safety and repping rep courses, oversubscribed, queuing up to get on them. So they're good things, but it's still not enough. So the employer can avoid industrial disruption by making a recommendable pay offer. I'd much rather ballot members on whether they accept a pay offer or not, as well as asking if you're going to take industrial action, than I would anything else. So this employer needs to take steps to stabilise the probation workforce, to show that they're listening, to show that they're treating you with some respect, and that they understand that unless we stem the flow of attrition, this service is destined to collapse. And people can tell us about the number of new probation trainees they're taking on, and of course we welcome each and every one of them. But look at the rate of figures of people jacking out after a few months. Yeah, it's a story there. I don't hear Kim Thorne-Edwards talking about that. I don't want to make it personal. So there, in short, is the quarry ahead of us. And I know we're going to come back with resolve. We're going to come back and we're going to win. That's what we're going to do. Well, we've heard a lot already at AGM about the insidious rise of the far right in our communities. In case you hadn't noticed, it's creeping up on a lamppost near you anytime soon, if not already. But let's not kid ourselves. That's just one manifestation of the extreme hatred that is permeating across the UK, Europe, other parts of the globe, egged on by the Nazi-esque in chief, Donald Trump, from the other side of the Atlantic. And were it not bad enough, he's got a whole coterie of fascist lunatics and Nazis supporting him every day. And I scarcely believe what I'm hearing sometimes. He's going out to millions of people across the world, talking about the peace he's supposedly brokered in Gaza, and let's hope that does, let's obviously hope that lasts. And then launching into highly vitriolic personal attacks on individuals. Well, that's not statesmanlike in my book. He acts like a pariah. And one day, we hope, the tables will turn. But that's the American people's business. He might want to stop poking his nose into our politics as well while he's at it. So we've seen this display of hatred at the Unite the Kingdom pantomime, I'll call it that. Except it was no laughing matter. Many people took part in the demo, headed by a coterie of fascists, totally unaware of the violent hatred that they and their children were about to be exposed to, thinking it was a jolly British day and it'd be a bit of a carnival. And let me say, because I travelled up to London to attend the counter-demonstration, that many of the people that were on the trains into London were ordinary people you might just cross paths with in the street, taking their kids for a day out. They'd been seduced by the display of Union Jacks, St George's crosses and the rest of it that was happening at the same time. So a lot of them didn't know what they were doing, but a lot did. So with a view to what was said yesterday, thanks for that valuable debate, tactically I would say it is not clever to class people who may be toying with the idea of voting reform or joining demonstrations as racist. Of course there were plenty that were. But if you're going to win hearts and minds back, we've got to be smarter than that. We've got to engage with people. We've got to devise strategies to expose the racists and the fascists. So I did attend the counter-demonstration the same day, and I have to say I was disappointed in many respects with it. I won't go into it in detail. I fed my concerns back to the organisers. I didn't think the route was safe. I didn't think the policing was adequate. And what I said to Ben is, we obviously will promote SUTR events, but I want to be sure that I have a fair degree of confidence that our members who attend those marches have got a level of safety that you would expect. I don't think that's unreasonable. Not necessarily the fault of SUTR. I think that demonstration, the biggest right-wing march in British history, took everyone by surprise. On that day, and I can tell you this, it was the closest I have come, I think, to serious injury or worse. And I wasn't on my own. There were two other Napo members that I hooked up with the march. They managed to get away, but were kettled in for 3 hours over and above the time they'd put aside. I suppose you might say by a bit of streetcraft, I managed to get behind the police who were heroically, they get a bad press, the police, I get it, but there were police on duty that day that themselves were subject to exposure on health and safety that their commanders should not have allowed. And that too is quite disgusting. And there were people in the police force fighting, and I mean fighting, against an army of fascist thugs who weren't just out to make a point, they were out to maim and kill if they could have. That's the level of hatred that's in our society now. I got away to tell the story. We'll engage with SUTR almost on a weekly basis as we do, but those events have caused the union and Labour movement to reflect deeply on where our strategy is and where it needs to go. And what my message is that before we can confront the enemy, we sometimes need to heal the divisions among, let's call it, the left movement, the anti-fascist movement, because, you know, there are organisations such as Hope Not Hate, Searchlight, Show Racism the Red Card, where I don't see much in the way of engagement between them and SUTR. And we need to work on that. There is not room for division. We've got to work together. I've asked for and secured an extended debate at the next meeting of the TUC General Council, where I've asked that we have a full discussion about what the TUC is intending to do and how we can step it up, if you like. It so happens that today I've had a paper from the TUC which clearly states a whole range of initiatives that are going to come into effect. Too lengthy to go through in detail, but I will be publishing it after the General Council has hopefully accepted it. Because there's some pretty stark statistics in some of the things that has reached me. There's been an opinion poll commissioned by the TUC from Opinium following the 24 general election. Key findings include, be ready for this, 10% of trade union members polled voted for reform, with 15% of all voters backing reform. 18% of ex-union members voted reform. 26% of current union members voted for reform or are considering voting for them. 32% of former union members either voted for reform or considered voting. And the two big issues among that cohort, migration and climate change. Issues that in the past have not really featured in the top 5, 6 issues for the electorate. Now it's become mainstream. So we need to develop a response. And what's coming out from the TUC is that we need to build our evidence base about what reform and those far-right groups are about and how they use social media, because they're funded to the hilt, aren't they, by Musk and others. We need to work industrially, support unions in the sectors we work in, work together more closely. Because what causes people to consider voting for far-right parties is because they are not seeing evidence of economic improvement. We've got to tackle that. But this government's got to tackle it. It's got to step up to the mark. It's got to do what it said on the tin before the election and start creating the circumstances where people think they have a future, think their children will get a job and a home. Otherwise, we're doomed. And I know it's a bit touchy yesterday in that debate, but we need better political education, not a North Korean-style program of brainwashing, but we need a proper, honest debate about what it is that cuts through into our communities. And we need to be supporting community groups. I mean, some years ago, I supported 2 events at my own football club, Millwall, which was, oh God, Millwall. Let me tell you, again, stereotyping, isn't it? Millwall, the highest base of players of non-white heritage anywhere in the championship. Okay? That day when I went, there were 90 students of all cultures and heritage attending a workshop, including the top players at the time. That's engagement. It's not brainwashing, it's engagement. You know, these are the friends you're going to grow up with over the next 30, 40 years. Because kids aren't born racist, they're taught the tricks. And there's a target. You've got to get to younger people. So these are just some of the initiatives that we're going to be working on in the coming months, and I hope you give them every ounce of support you possibly can. And we'll continue exposing the transphobic, misogynistic, and misogynoir rhetoric peddled by the obnoxious group of Reform MPs and councillors across our community. And we want to see some of the antics they're up to. Some of them can't even string two sentences together. 19-year-olds being put in charge of children's services. I mean, come on. And you'll say he's been a bit ageist there. Come on. Let's get real, shall we? They haven't got the people with the brain. And it's a problem, increasingly, people are sucking up to that and thinking, what's wrong with that? Well, there's a lot wrong with that. There's a lot wrong with their proposals to cut out jobs that they see as wasteful. America's arriving here. Be ready. And finally, and you notice I haven't named anyone by name in this address. There's a reason for that. But there's one of their public figures who went on TV a few weeks ago, and we need to replay this clip time and time again. She said, I haven't got any love for trade unions. I don't like trade unions. Got news for you. There's 6.5 million trade unions that you think are going to vote for you. And we'll be doing everything in our power to replay that utterance to our members and wider in the coming years. So we'll be there. But I've got just a couple of messages before I start to close down. The central message that we need to embrace is that refugees are not to blame. They're not to blame for the shambolic failure of successive governments to agree on a system that provides at least the opportunity of safe routes for those seeking genuine refuge from the horrors of war or as a result of displacement. And I don't know how many wars Trump is claiming he's sorted over the last week or two. Let me tell you, even if he's right, there's about 12 or 13 regional conflagrations going on around the globe. And there's a forgotten war as well. Sudan, where the death toll is 3 times as high as the dreadful genocide we're seeing in Gaza. But no one's marching up and down the streets on that one, are they? No. We need to recognise this for what it is. Hatred, division, all spurred on by either religious factions or people with particular political beliefs. And refugees are not to blame for the economic failures of successive governments. And as I said, the decline in high-quality jobs and services. So look, there's a saying in life, know someone by the company they keep. You've heard that before. So think about those who regularly flank the journalists from Luton. You know what I mean. If he's a journalist, I'm a bloody brain surgeon because I've seen no evidence of any journalistic expertise. But more seriously, and I won't name him, his coterie of supporters include a substantial number who, according to Hope Not Hate, who've never been sued for this, have any number of convictions for paedophilia. Nice. These are the people demonstrating keeping our communities safe against the Muslims, themselves with form lists longer than your arm. Many of them who protest outside hotels on the pretext that the asylum seekers are going to come out and rape women, etc. And incidents do occur, and the full force of the law must be brought down. But let me tell you, when it comes to sex offences in the UK, 80% of them or more are proven to be committed by white working class males. You know that. But I don't stop the Metro and all the other papers parading the picture of one person as a further indicator that we're being invaded, swamped, etc. You know how it works. So the rhetoric must be challenged. There's one more thing I want to mention. I'm sorry if you think I'm labouring this, but I feel deeply about it. We also need to expose two-tier policing. Now, I'm not talking about the stuff that Reform come out with. I'm talking about two-tier policing that sees senior citizens carted off to a cell for holding up a cardboard placard expressing a genuinely held, non-threatening point of view. Ladies and gentlemen, that's free speech, is it not? But not if you're of a far-right persuasion. And at the same time as this going on, we have seen evidence, Ben and I have seen evidence of a demonstration that took place outside some council offices and a probation office, I'm not going to say where, very recently. Now, people didn't know the demonstration was happening. These people had been to the local hotel where the asylum seekers were. They'd marched up the road to the council offices, and the council offices and the car park were shared by probation. So I watched police stand by and allow these thugs to set up a roadblock outside the car park, where they were asking to see the ID lanyards of council and probation workers before they let them out. This is Britain. And the police stood there and did sweet FA. So we're taking that issue up at the highest levels with employee relations. In fairness, that office has been closed now for successive Fridays as a safety measure. Good. But the inertia that we encountered from various levels of HMPPS management was disgraceful. Hours and hours for people to act in the full knowledge that another demonstration was scheduled that week. That's not protecting your employees. That is the dereliction of duty that I talked about earlier. And we're not going to be quiet about it. Conference, I want to finish by paying tribute to your contribution to Napo, to the loyalty and perseverance that you demonstrate daily in serving the public and helping to protect and promote the interests of our members. You know, I've said this many times before and I make no apologies for repeating it. You're the lifeblood of this union, not the platform, not the General Secretary, not the national officers. You are the lifeblood. You charge us with tasks to undertake on your behalf, but without you, we are nowhere. So thank you for everything you do, the way you sustain us in workplaces. You can be proud of yourselves. So, we'll take forward the mandates that flow from this AGM. We'll do so with vigour and determination. And never has it been more clear as to why we need to deliver the probation service out of the inept, incompetent, suffocating and prison-centric HMPPS. This farce has gone on far too long. And again, when we do meet with David Lammy, at some time in the next 5 years, Ben probably, we'll be giving him that message. Do something about it. You have the power, you have the mandate, you have the means. Do something. Rescue us, please. Conference, I'm proud of all of you. Thank you.